I remember one night my daddy was headed off to work. He worked a day job, but then to support the family, he also worked a night job. And in the day he worked as like a teacher, and at night he was a janitor. And I remember asking him, "Where are you going, Dad?" And he goes, "I'm going off to work." And he got down on one knee, got eye level with me, and he says, "And I'm going to tell you something, Fred Blackburn." He says, "In the day I teach my students, and I prepare my lesson plans, and I do the best job I can, and I'm trying to get to my work where I got my degree in administration, and I want to be a great administrator and a great principal." He says, "Right now I'm going to go scrub toilets." He says, "You know what? I'm going to scrub each and every toilet to the best of my ability." And I don't know, I was like 7. I didn't think that much about it, but apparently it stuck somewhere deep down in my psyche because I remember that conversation to this day. And that's become a part of my character and who I am. Whether I was digging ditches, or whether I'm here in the classroom, or I'm speaking on some seminars or something like that, I strive for excellence. Excellence in all that I do. And what that begins to do is it sets this pattern of excellence in your life that it doesn't just serve you, but it serves those around you. And you're not doing it because of what others will think of you, but I guarantee you, those of you that choose to live excellent lives, you will be noticed. You will not be part of the common crowd. I remember years later, I was working in the California Conservation Corps, and our motto was, what was it? Hard work, low pay, miserable conditions. Like that was supposed to be a good thing, I guess. And most of the people I worked with, and we had some stinky jobs, picking up trash, watering oleanders on the side of the freeway, just ridiculous things. We had some good projects, but a lot of it was just miserable work. And most of the people I worked with, they were just like, they're paying me minimum wage, so I'm going to give them minimum effort. But because I was a virtue ethicist, even though I was making minimum wage, I worked like I was making $1 million a year. I gave them everything I had from the time I checked in to the time I left. And as time went by, those people were still watering oleanders by the side of the freeway while I was up in the high places of the earth, living in the backcountry, making trails and living off the fat of the land. And once again, I didn't do it to get those things. I'm not a consequentialist. I wasn't thinking, I'm going to work hard so I can get out of this podunk town and get somewhere special. It was, no, because that's who I am. I'm an excellent person that does excellent things. Okay, so that's what Aristotle is trying to get across to people. Be excellent. Be excellent in all that you do. The golden mean. The Greeks discovered early on that asymmetry is more beautiful than symmetry. Because symmetrical things, whether it's a temple or a sculpture or a painting, they're static. They're kind of boring and rigid. And what they began to realize was that if you look around in nature, it has an asymmetrical beauty to it. And they learned what they call the principle of the mean, or the golden mean, that if you take a rectangle, it's kind of interesting because other people have discovered this principle. Fascinating. This shape, it's a pleasing shape, and it's because of its proportions. But if you take that shape and you divide it into thirds, and you divide it into thirds again, and again, and again, and again, what we begin to discover is that this is a shape we find all over nature. We find it in the nautilus shell, we find it in pine cones, we find it in your fingerprints. It's all around us. This shape, this golden mean, this proportion. That's very, for whatever reason, how we're wired or made, humans find this a very pleasing shape. And the point I'm trying to get to here is, it's not just, Aristotle is not saying be a fence straddler. He's saying find a well-proportioned life. You're not just looking for balance, but well-proportionality. And so how do we do this? How do we apply this sort of ethic? And part of it is, he says, avoid extremes. And there's two major extremes that we really need to look out for. And this is the extreme of excess on the one hand. So we got excess over here and deficiency over here. Is that right? Or am I breaking a rule? So it's I before E except after C, except in words like deficiency? Okay. So if we take some sort of issue, like let's take the issue of fear. What would we call someone who is deficient in fear? Like those people that wear those no fear shirts around and bumper stickers. Every time I see one of those, I just think, wow, give them a little space. Because they are deficient.
Reckless?
Yeah, thank you. Reckless. Fearless people are foolhardy and reckless. They hurt themselves and others. It's the fact. So a deficiency of fear we would call foolhardy, or I can't spell reckless. I'm just going to put it. And what would we call someone who has an excess of fear?
Chicken.
Chicken. A coward. Paranoid, right. I mean, it incapacitates them. They can't function. On the one hand, it's debilitating, and on the other, they're doing all sorts of things that's going to get them or others in trouble. And so what Aristotle is saying is, avoid extremes, find the golden mean. Find that happy place, that excellent place between the extremes. And the happy place between a deficiency and excess of fear we call courage. Because courageous people aren't people who have no fear. They're people who have the proper amount of fear, but act anyways. They act in spite of their fear. That's what we would call courageous. Okay. Yes?
So this happiness, excellence, and avoid extremes, is that kind of the order to the hierarchy? That
Yes, they're a bundle. You get them as a bundle.
So, I mean, if you try to plug in like performance into that balance, you wouldn't want to be on either extreme. You wouldn't want to be very poorly.
Yeah, let's do that one. Let's do, so you can just keep plugging different things. Let's talk about work or work performance. Okay, what would we call someone who is deficient in work performance? A lazy, right? A bum. What would we call someone who is excessive in work performance? Yeah, workaholic, overachiever. And what would we call someone who has a well-proportioned work ethic? Industrious. This is great. Do you see how you can apply this to virtually anything? But no one's telling you, like, you have to do this, or God said do that, or society says this, or your mama says don't do that. It's just kind of like, look, mama, I'm living a well-proportioned or balanced life. Get off my back. Yes?
Now, this wasn't, wouldn't